I didn't know at the time that that's what I was doing to myself. I didn't realize I was molding this future version of myself, but the future version of myself then is who I am now.
What's shaking? Welcome back to All In. I'm your host, Rick Jordan. Today, I have an amazing guest, Matt Rosenthal. What's shaking, buddy?
What's up?
Hey.
Awesome.
I'm excited to have you on because you're a cybersecurity expert just like me. And, I see that you're listed in your title, company, whatever. Don't you love that field on our intake form?
I do.
As business/technology strategist. That's fantastic because we're going to have some good conversation. We started pre-show and producer said, shut up and get moving on to the show because this is good things already. So let's pick it up there.
We were rolling.
Yeah, we were.
Great conversation, man.
Right on. We were talking about entrepreneurship and how you and I are not the tech guys that like to stare at screens all day long. We sort of transitioned over the dark side, or maybe we always were dark siders to begin with, into just networking and connecting with people because that's what to me, and I'm sure most of what technology really is about. Technology is just a tool to enable human beings, to enable people.
Yeah, totally. It really is. It's like if you really understand what it can do for you, it can like 10x everything that you're doing. Just don't fear it. Like totally embrace it and realize what it can really do for you.
Yeah, for sure. We also were talking about how you were the guy, again, similar to me, how technology, we could do it, right? We could do the tech stuff. But then you transitioned away from that. What was that shift look like for you?
I think I was always away from it. I fell into IT. It wasn't like I wanted to be a cop. And
no joke.
I blew out my chest
dude.
bench pressing.
Yeah.
I'm missing like half my chest from bench pressing like 25 years ago. And I kind of changed that trajectory. So I was like, what am I going to do?
Dude, that's not on your bio anywhere. What the hell? That's awesome.
Yeah, minor detail.
Yeah, no joke. That's where I was too. I was a police cadet. I was going to do military police, law enforcement, and then same thing. Just fell into tech. That's just kind of how it went.
Yeah, and it's a good place to fall. I mean, it was. Then I was going to be a fireman because I volunteered for 15 years in my hometown. So I was like, all right, I could be a fireman. And I fell into this stuff. And I'm telling you, I didn't know, this is back in 98, 99. I didn't know anything. Like I didn't know a single thing about computers. And I was given an opportunity at the World Trade Center at Deutsche Bank. Friends of mine had a contract there and I just fell into it. But even when I was coming up and teaching myself and like being that techie tech, it never really felt like what I wanted to do. Like there was always this other like thing where I just would connect with the end users or the customers, and I would spend more time with the chit chatting and getting to know them and feeling good. And I was always able to do the work, but it never came easy. What came easy was seeing the bigger picture and seeing what other people don't see and didn't see. And so naturally, when I had the opportunity to transition out of, I was in corporate America. I had a pretty good job at a multi-billion-dollar company running IT in New York City. When I had the opportunity to kind of depart from that and go on my own path, it was scary as hell. But I did it. I just was like, I don't want to be in a cage. Like, I don't want to be working for other people. I don't want to just be this techie tech guy following this path that you're supposed to follow. And so I left and I felt this freedom, this like, sort of like, wow, now I can do whatever I want. And I discovered all along I was technical, but I was really an entrepreneur and I didn't know it. And that began the path of the world that we're in now. But it just didn't feel right. It never felt right.
Yeah. I swear.
It felt like I was doing something for a paycheck.
For sure. Yeah, exactly. I was saying, I swear we're doppelgangers, at least as far as mindset goes. And there's a lot of, I've talked about this a little bit before, but I think that there's going to be a lot of coronapreneurs, especially in the tech industry. Like,
I haven't heard that. That's a good term.
Yeah, I coined it a little while ago. I think it was on a previous episode, but especially in tech, because what do techs do? I mean, for you and
I got to write that down. I'm going to buy that domain.
Yeah, go for it. Coronapreneur.
I'll sell it to you for $100,000.
Awesome. I love it. I think my people bought the domain already, so we're good. Yeah. Yeah. But looking at how tech people branch out, or start off on their own most of the time. And this was the same case with me. I don't know what your opportunity looked like, but I was laid off. I had been doing tech, and then I moved into sales and wrote a sales playbook for Best Buy after graduating through Geek Squad. But before that, I worked with Merrill Lynch. I mean, enterprise level stuff, similar to what you're talking about when you're in New York and how you were brought up or cut your teeth in the tech field. I was doing the same thing, but I always loved interacting with the people more than anything else. And I was finally pushed out, even though I knew in my heart that it's, like deep down, it just didn't sit right what I was doing, because I felt like I was meant for more. And I felt like I needed to be running something and building something to where I could impact people that are working for me, rather than trying to just build up somebody else who I'm working for. That was something that just always didn't sit right with me either. The whole paycheck thing. I hated receiving the paycheck because it was limiting, but I love now writing the paychecks because I see it as fulfilling.
I mean, fulfilling is like an understatement. It's like I actually stop to think on a regular basis about how grateful I am that although I worked my butt off for 20 years to get things to where they are, I have the opportunity now to actually sign that paycheck. And there's people that are my employees, but they're my work family, they're my team. But it's them, it's their children, it's their spouses who we're able to provide not just income, but that income gives them a place to live. It gives them the money in their pocket. It gives them medical insurance. What we do is very powerful, and it's important that there's small businesses and there's entrepreneurs, because we actually create. It's true. We're creators. We're creative thinkers. We don't just create jobs. We create the ideas that in and of itself is the company that allows the job to even exist. Like, we literally create. Signing that paycheck is a reminder. You don't really sign the paychecks, by the way, do you?
No. You click a button. Actually, I don't know. It used to be clicking a button.
I don't know. My bookkeeper does it. But,
For sure.
But that there's a gratefulness that we people like you and I do. I'm sure we share it. That, wow, it's so cool that we started with nothing. We built something, and we're able to actually impact other people's lives, namely our work families.
I love that. There's with IT people specifically, this is something that I see and something that I try to grapple with, right? Because you and I just went for it, right? We jumped in, and there was no.
I went for it, man.
Yeah, there was no looking back. It was I think my third episode ever, because we're in like 100 something now. My third episode ever was called Burn the Net. And that was really what I did, and I'm sure you did too, was that, I had this visualization of these trapeze artists, and everything in the circus, and it isn't just remove the net, it's like freaking burn the thing, so you can't even think about putting it back up.
There's no plan B.
Exactly. And
Tony Robbins puts it like this. He's like, just burn the boats. That's his thing. Burn the boats. There's no other way off the island. Schwarzenegger had one too that I watched. Well, his was, there's no plan B. You just go for it.
Yeah.
Plan A is the plan.
Right on. I see.
And make it work.
I've seen IT people, and I'll call them IT people because you and I were IT people. We were IT people in corporations, at one point. We were those individuals. And they'll move out, whether it's, quitting, disagreements, whatever, or laid off, fired. A lot of them are fired in just whatever reason, because it's hard to understand our culture sometimes, I think, because we're quirky in that way. But then they shift into where they're running their own thing, right? And it might be like a 1 or 2 man shop. But that's where it stays. And some of them will even say, hey, you know what? I'm done doing this. I want to shift back into working for someone else because at least I had a steady paycheck at that point. Do you remember what it was like during that point where you're like, I'm jumping in and I'm not really making any money? What caused you to push through that phase?
I'm a maniac, man. I have persistence and like commitment, and like I just knew what I wanted to do. And I was fortunate enough that I wasn't fired, but I was probably going to be, because the company I worked for found out that I had a side gig, which apparently now is like normal.
Yeah.
But back
now it's
me,
even like idolized as a side hustle.
Right, like you're supposed to.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we all have it. It's a side hustle. You do some IT work.
Yeah.
So when they found out, I decided rather than have the stain of being fired, I just quit. And I'm like, okay, now what? And I didn't know I was going to go into doing all this. I just kind of took me about a year or two to figure it out. But once I went, it was just me. I was working out in my basement in my house. It was just me. And I just was like, I'm going. And I know how to I have a very corporate view and a small business view of things. I did make one more stop to answer your question. And I was a CFO for a multi-million-dollar company. And during that experience for 3.5 years, while I was still running my side business, which I was making hundreds of thousands a year off the side business. And my new employer, who was a friend of mine from the firehouse, knew I had that. He didn't care. He was like, look, do whatever you have to do. Just run my business as it needs to be run. That 3-year experience with him, or 3.5 years, was the last piece I needed to feel the confidence I needed to fully understand sales, to have an idea about marketing, and to understand specifically finance and the finances of running a business, because I did it for him for 3.5 years and he beat me up like you wouldn't believe. I mean, and so I learned a lot, but I don't know that a lot of people that I've experienced can take that type of beating and that type of experience and see it as an opportunity to learn. But when I finally turned to him and I'm like, his name is Chris. I'm like, Chris, I'd like to convert you to a customer. Have you be one of my clients, an IT client, and I'm going on my own. I've got enough business. I've got enough revenue coming in, reoccurring. I'm going on my own. And that was actually that was 3 years after I quit that job in the city. Then I went on my own. It was just me, man. It's scary. But the thing is, I just push through fear. Like I make a decision, I weigh the pros and the cons, and it's calculated. But I have a high threshold for mental and emotional and psychological pain. and you have to if you're an entrepreneur. And I had that. And I saw, again, this whole multi-year process of turning into what I became. I didn't know at the time that that's what I was doing to myself. I didn't realize I was molding this future version of myself. But the future version of myself at that then is who I am now. And you got it. And I just pushed it. I pushed and pushed and pushed. It went from me then to my first employee, my second employee. Then I got an office with 2 little rooms. We had 4 or 5 lists squished into this one little room at one point, and we were using our own. We just kept going. I kept clawing and clawing. And here's the key to it all. I knew from the very beginning that I had to begin with the end in mind. Now, I don't know what the end is yet, but I do know maybe I sell it. Maybe I keep acquiring other companies because that's how I've grown. Whatever it is, I put processes and systems in place from day one before I had any people, knowing that those things were necessary to scale the company. And what I have now is I have something that's actually franchisable if I wanted to. It's so process and system driven that people have paid me to re-engineer their own entire business workflows, top to bottom, because they're not as effective and as efficient and productive as they should be. I did that from the very first day. And so I was scared, but I also knew that I knew what I was capable of. And that comes from your heart and your soul. I knew what I was capable of because I know that I'll work harder than anybody else around me. I always have.
Right on.
And that's what it is.
I love that.
If I failed, I fail. I do it. I could always go get a job in the city again. And
For
I knew
sure.
that.
Dude, I don't know about you, but I think it's pretty awesome to fail. I mean, afterwards, when you're looking in hindsight, it's pretty awesome. But of course, there's a lot of suck when you're going through it in the moment. But falling on your face and getting beat up, I think it's something that every entrepreneur needs. And I don't think you truly are an entrepreneur unless you go through that fire. And that's where
times what you said times 100, man.
Yeah.
You have to. And the thing is, even with what's going on now, as terrible as what's going on the past year is, business wise, it's shaking out the weak hands. The businesses that really can't make it, they're gone, or they're about to be gone, or they'll be gone soon. And the businesses that are really run well, they'll make it. They'll be all right, and they'll pivot. They'll be decisive. They'll shift. And I've done it. I did it back in March. I sat my whole company down. I'm like, all right, here's the deal, March or April. Here's what I have: a 7-phase plan to get us through this. We're all going to be all right, which I did. I spent a lot of time coming up with a plan. And I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know that if anything happens, I've got 7 steps that I've got laid out that will maintain us and our customers, and we'll get through this. I never had to go into any of those steps because our business is so strong. I didn't have to let anybody go. I didn't have to. We've been giving out bonuses. I've given out raises. We're actually better off now than we were before. It's partially a tribute to me, but it's mostly a tribute to the fact that the processes and systems that I put in place years ago, that's the glue that holds it all together.
Yeah, no doubt. Man, that's fantastic. As we're talking about, you said that the way you've gotten to where you are right now is acquisitions, and that's a path that I'm just starting down. I'm actually looking at private placement and things right now. There's investors that want to jump on board because same thing, there's processes and systems in place. I know you're saying no, but I have the end in mind too. And the end in mind is way up there. So
we should talk after this.
We should talk after this, yes. But taking a look at who's out there, there's this difference too that I've seen between, and everybody likes to say, hey, when they have their own business, their own small business, the word now of entrepreneur is just kind of thrown around. And everyone feels that, this is personal opinion here that, oh, I'm an entrepreneur because I have my own business. And I learned, because it was a shifting point for me after having my own IT and then cybersecurity firm for about 5 years, there was a shifting point for me to where I really realized that I was an entrepreneur. Yeah, and that's when I started attacking everything and really believing that this thing is bigger than me. And that's how it has to be in order to continue growing, in order to continue impacting lives. That's when I even looked at doing the media that I'm doing right now. It's just, it was this transition phase to where, like you said, you didn't even realize it right away. And that resonated so much with me because even though I knew it was inside of me, I didn't really realize it even after I started out, quote unquote, on my own. Yeah, but you look at it, and I was talking with somebody the other day. This is in a group that I'm a part of, and I was explaining our industry. Because a lot of people that start in our industries worked for corporations like us. And then they shifted over and started their own gig. It could have been a side hustle that turned into something else. They could have been, doing Wi-Fi networks in a home or something like, hey, I can do this at a business too and make some more money. That's cool. That's great. But then that's kind of where they stay, and really he came up with the phrase like, oh, so most are really like owner operators. And I had always heard that term as far as like a truck driver, right? Transportation owner operator. And that's what I likened it to, or, a small manufacturing company or something like that, to where there's the owner back there literally running the machines and the fabrication equipment and everything else. But in our industry, that exists a lot to where it's owner operators. And they're doing the same thing right now, just for themselves, making the same money with more pressures than what they were working for a corporation. I don't know how you see that, but I see that as kind of being tragic. It's like either jump all in with both feet, or it's okay, take the pressures off, because there's a hell of a lot of pressures in doing what we do and just work for somebody else. How do you feel about that?
It is tragic, and I totally agree with you. I mean, to me, it's like 95% of our industry, barring like the huge companies that are, that are buying up people like us. Like there's those, but the small, medium business, it is tragic. It's almost everybody that I come across in our market in general. And it's funny because the cream does rise to the top. And so it could be that people like you and I, it's not that there's anything wrong with those owner operators, but if they're satisfied, getting it to be into their 40s and 50s and maybe 60s and still dealing with the phone calls in the middle of the night and not being able to go on vacation and having to be on vacation with your family and you're sitting in front of your computer for the entire time and you can't break. I did all that, but there was always a vision to get out of that. The thing is, I've experienced people. I did a couple of deals over the past 5 years, and I've experienced 3 partners that came on, which are not they're no longer with me, but they came on because they wanted the bigger vision. They wanted what it is that I want, that I do, the vision that I see, and what I'm manifesting. But then when it actually came down to it, they were owner operators. They couldn't get their heads out of the business. They couldn't shift their mindset. They needed this ego-driven need to control and to be involved in every little thing because that's all they know, instead of doing their jobs, right? So ultimately, I had to buy them all out. They're all gone. It's just me again. And the reason for that, and I learned something very valuable, but the reason, number one, is because they have that mindset. I look at it as it's sad in a way because they'll never go any further than where they are today. Because their own mindset is in their way. It doesn't mean for them that it's bad. They may be perfectly content and accepting of that, and that's okay.
That is very much okay. Yeah, I'm with you.
It's totally okay. But my vision, and it sounds like your vision, is way bigger than that. So when you talk about a visionary, we just wired different. Like we are able to get out of the way of fear. We're not driven by the fear. We can pivot, we can be decisive, and we can make things happen, like doing deals to grow the company. The lesson I learned though out of all that is to be extremely, extremely careful, and frankly, to do DISC assessments, behavior assessments, personality assessments before partnering with anybody ever again, because those things do come up. If it's an owner operator mindset, it's not a person you want to partner with. It's not a deal you want to do. They're going to get in the way unless they can really get behind you as the leader, as the visionary. Right? There's a vision. If they can't get behind it, all they're going to do is be resistant. You're never going to be in a flow state, and you'll end up doing what I did, which is spending $400,000 in legal fees and going through 2 business divorces.
Oh,
However,
God, yeah.
That's all good. In the end, I've got a business that's still the vision I wanted. I've got a revenue that's still the vision I wanted, and it's still what I want it to be. And it's a growth mindset. It's a scalable mindset. It's really cool, actually. But yeah, it is tragic that they'll never see the successes that maybe you and I see financially, and certainly being able to help more people, more and more and more people. It's tragic in that way. But for them as individuals, they don't realize that they're stuck there. There's a lack of awareness. So
if they're content in that spot, that's cool, because that could be all they would like in life, and that's perfectly okay too. Because let's say
there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, they've got the single family home, which is fantastic. And I'm not focusing this on material things, but they've got a family, nice kids, amazing kids, and that's what they want in life, and that's perfectly cool. The tragic part are the ones that feel that hole still, or that pressure, and be like, why did I ever start this to begin with? There's so many pressures that are involved in this, because now I have to deal with insurance concerns. Now I have to deal with more liabilities, especially in the cyber world. Now I can get sued for millions of dollars just because my client now blamed me for a breach that they just had and claim negligence on my part.
We carry that, man. We sleep with that. That's always there.
Same here. And it's not cheap insurance, man. Yeah. And that's the thing, because you talk about 95% of our industry, I would venture to say that it's probably 80% of those 95% that are the owner operator types are not even carrying the proper insurance for this, because it's
the same reason they're not growing.
Yeah, right on.
They're lacking. Listen, those deals I did that I was telling you about, we're describing the same person out there. It is 85, 90, 95% of the industry. They are technicians who evolved into, hey, I got enough business, let me start a business. And hey, all right, now I'm running a business. And okay, great. That doesn't make you an entrepreneur, number one. And number two, just because you can run a business doesn't mean that you should be. You might even be somebody who started that. Maybe you should step aside, do what you're best at, which is do the IT, and hire a CEO to run your business.
Which is also cool. That's awesome.
COO.
Yeah,
totally. That gives you the freedom you need. But the problem is with these owner operators that haven't evolved and become mature business owners, they don't get it. And it's unfortunate because nobody teaches us, in the immortal words of Robert Kiyosaki, they don't teach us that in school.
Yeah, right on. Now, here's the straight truth out of everything we've just said, right? We've just pissed off about 50% of the people that are listening, which is great because we're telling them that they're stuck. Where they're
we want them to think. It's good. We're inspiring them to think. Wait, is that me?
Yeah, I feel you. And it's not bad that that's happened, but I do want to bring it back around because you and I live to uplift people too. And that's the thing. But one of the things that I fully believe in is that you need a mirror put in front of you first. I had to have that many times in my life, and I had to take a good, long, freaking hard look at that mirror to really accept what was going on. Because the only way you can move forward is actually really understanding truly where you're at right now. So if that's the case,
serious.
Right on. That's just the straight truth. And so I've had to have coaches and mentors in my life, even last night, a director who's on my board, because part of what we're doing this year is doing a Reg A offering for acquisitions, right? A public offering. And he's hitting me last night, and he's hitting me hard. I spent about 45 minutes with him last night. And at the end of it, I'm like, man, I needed that ass whooping. For real. Because he was just pounding away. We talked to the phone, but then he just kept hitting me with text message after text message last night. And I'm just looking at this and it's like, this is what I need, because this was the mirror in front of my face, just to say, hey, it was a deal. And he's like, this is not good. And here, in the last part, I can't remember what it was, but it was like, bro, I need a commitment. I don't need a screenshot of something. I need you to say, this is what you're going to do. This is a director, and he's also my fractional CFO. So it was both of those realms that he was looking into. And I was like, after them, like, I appreciate you. That was my response. Thank you.
Powerful.
For real. Yeah, exactly. Because that's just a look at where I was. And that's never going to stop. So if you're running away from that as the owner operator and saying, you know what, I'm just going to keep drudging along here, spinning my wheels, you have to take a real look at where you're at. Is that where you want to be for the next 20 years? Because let's talk real numbers, Matt, for a sec. We're both into acquisitions. One just a couple of weeks ago, $1.8 million cybersecurity company. We'll call them an IT support company or an MSP because they really had not evolved completely, right? $1.8 million in revenue every year. And most would be like, because most of our industry does under $500,000 a year in revenue. That's just the case. That's a 95%. You know that. You see all the acquisition data. Exactly. So when I took a look at his EBITDA, because the valuation of a company, for those who are listening, is typically, most in our industry think, oh, it's recurring revenue with a multiple of that. Sort of, it's an okay bet, but not really. It's your EBITDA, your profitability, or you can call it seller discretionary earnings after you add back in what you're taking out as a seller, plus any perks like vehicles.
Backs, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And those are big numbers. That's where the hidden money is.
For sure. Absolutely it is. So when I'm looking at this, even with the add backs for SDE, for the seller discretionary earnings, they were sitting on a $1.8 million company at around $120K per year in seller discretionary earnings. Yeah. So you're talking like 7%. Yeah. And his asking price was $825,000. So he was looking at
a touch.
Yeah, it was
so out of touch.
It was 8x multiple, right? And I'm looking at this. I'm like, dude, you're really worth like $300K because
I was gonna
Yeah, and that was the hard thing. And I'm taking a look. I'm like, where have you been? And this is the straight truth, the hard hitting stuff. What have you been doing the past 20 years? Because his thing was moving on to retirement. He was mid 60s, and he's like, well, I need the $800K for my retirement. I'm like, the first thing is that if you're going to live another 20 years, $800K is not enough. Yeah, just look at inflation. Second of all, you're really only worth about 300 if there's an earnout structure that's in place.
If those contracts are good, if you have contracts on the recurring revenue.
Right on, which by the way, the mix was 18% in recurring revenue. Most of it was still like consulting services, typical old school kind of.
He's not worth. He's not worth anything.
Yeah. So there's
no value to that business.
Right on.
So he's the value. He's the business.
That's it.
Means he can't go anywhere.
Right on. And that's why I put a 5-year earnout structure in place. That was the only way that I would make an offer for that.
Right.
He would have to stick around.
You got to deal with him and hope he works every day because he wants to retire. His mindset. So I'd walk away from that one. Man.
Yeah. And I did. I did. Yeah. Exactly. So he ended up going with somebody else where he didn't have to stick around. And from what his broker came back to me with was he got a deal of about $350,000. So, I was the one that held up the mirror. That's cool. And then he went somewhere else to get the straight truth again. And it's like, okay, this is what I have to do. But now he's working for that company, saying exactly what I'm saying for the next 6 years or so. This is what the broker told me. So that's the straight truth is what are you building right now? And what are you going to look at 20 years from now? Because if this is your retirement, if this is what you're saving for, because Social Security, that's not going to be around. Right? These are people that are probably our age in their 40s, right? 20, 25 years from now, it's not going to be around. It's impossible. A 401k is not going to last you. You need to have some real investments.
I totally agree with you.
You need to have some real. So if you're building this to sell at some point and exit, you need to go all in for this, or you need to go work for somebody else, someplace that can provide a pension, which almost don't exist anymore either.
That's gone too.
Yep. Or make wise investments. Otherwise, what's the choice of that if you're that owner operator? Go freaking all in. That's it.
You got to go all in. There's nothing you can do. I mean, if you're that guy and you're in that position, frankly, forget retiring. Work another 5 or 10 years and take the profits from your business instead of spending it on yourself and doing whatever you're doing with it. Take that and then invest that in places so that in the future you've got cash flow coming from something other than your business.
Right on.
Like real estate. Buy real estate that has positive cash flow.
That's what I'm going to do. Multi-units, especially.
That's what I do. I make money from my business for sure, but my personal wealth doesn't come from the business because I don't necessarily know if I'm going to sell it or keep it. It doesn't matter. I'm still building, but the cash flow that comes from that, you do have to know, like, what do you want to do? Like, you're right. You're not going to retire. I mean, 401k is to me is becoming nonsense. I contribute to it because my employees need to, and if I don't, they can't. So I contribute to it, but you as a business owner, your bottom line matters. 7-8%. To your point, the guys I did deals with, they were running like that, and they didn't think so. They thought that they were running healthy. And I'm doing spreadsheets and looking at numbers like, wait, you're running at 10, 11, 12%, and it's mostly project work. It's mostly billable time. Your value is pretty damn low. And I don't care how many millions you're running at. The business isn't worth anything. But inside of that, I see the diamond in the rough. I see how we can convert things, how we can clean things up, how we can be more efficient. And I take the business that was doing 12% and roll it into my process and workflow. Now it's doing 25, 30% margins. So they're out there, but those business owners, they never, my experience, they never actually come to grips with it, because it would cause them to question everything they've been doing for as long as they've been doing it, which requires you to have awareness, insight, and the ability to actually look in the mirror at yourself and say, holy shit, well, I've been doing this wrong. I could have been doing it different. And wow, I've left so much on the table. That's a big mind shift for people. It's a big mind shift.
I'm excited about where we're going to go from here, because we're 30 minutes in and I don't know. Let's shift to some personal stuff. Is that cool? Because
pardon my French, by the way.
Whatever.
People watching live.
Yeah, I have to control myself here and there. I've gotten better at it, but there's times where it just flies too. Actually, you know what, dude? We're just going to end it there. Is that cool? We need to, because we've been hard hitting this and this episode is what this is going to be about. It's just a reality check. That's it. Reality check for everyone who's in our industry, and we want to help them. And this is the way that we can help them too, is saying, listen, here is what the current economic scenario is, both across the globe and also for you personally. This is what you have to take. So take this. And from here, I hope that everybody listening makes decisions, man, because there's a lot of hard-hitting decisions if you want to be a true entrepreneur.
This is a time right now where in our business, aside from doing deals and M&A, you have to pivot, because the way we were operating and services we were delivering a year ago or 2 or 3, it's done. Where we need to be now and going forward for the next, call it 1 to 3 years, it's the same but different. You have to recognize what you really need to be able to deliver to people: cybersecurity, cloud, and collaboration tools. You have to be able to deliver those well. You can't deliver everything. So pick what you're going to deliver and deliver it, do a good job on it, and be the best at it. But don't spend this year fumbling around trying to figure it out, chasing your tail, saying I'm going to come up with a plan that you never sit down to put together, which takes an hour. Really lead your company, take it somewhere, know where you're going, and get behind it and have confidence that you've got it figured out. And you could be wrong. And you know what? If you're wrong, pivot again.
That's the beauty of it. There's endless pivots. There's no limit to how often you can reinvent yourself.
That's the entrepreneur.
Fail
and pivot. Fail and pivot.
Matt, this was incredible. You got me fired up this morning. My first one of the day here.
Awesome.
Thank you, brother. I hope you had fun too. And where can everyone find you? Because of course it's mind-core.com for your company, but you're on Instagram, you're on probably on Facebook, whatever. But where can everybody find you just to connect with you, follow you?
Best place is LinkedIn. Just look me up, and you can search for me with Mindcore. YouTube, I have, tons of videos. I'm probably putting out about 10 a week now, and
nice.
New videos. And I do have a podcast that I'm working on. It's going to start up in a few weeks. But for now, just go to LinkedIn and everything is there.
Cool, brother. Everybody needs to go and connect with Matt on LinkedIn. And thanks for joining in today. Share this with everybody you know that's in this industry, especially, or just a general entrepreneur, because this was hard hitting and you need it today. Matt, thanks, my man. What's shaking? Thank you for joining me on the All In Podcast. Click the subscribe button and smash that bell for notifications. Text me, 312-535-8520. Follow me on social media at Mr. Rick Jordan. See you next episode. I am Rick Jordan, and I approve this message.